everyone. Welcome. So happy to have everyone here. How many folks is your first time attending a San Francisco Vegans and Tech Meetup? Wow, that's amazing. Fantastic. How many folks here are vegan? Okay, there you go. How many folks work in tech? Okay, how many folks work in vegan tech? Okay. Not on the panel. Great, well I'm so happy that you're all here. We've got an incredible panel tonight. I want to start off by thanking Google for hosting us, Google Community Space. Round of applause. I also want to thank FFAC, Rachel Shippey. Where is Rachel?
She's still at the front desk.
Okay, Rachel, round of applause for Rachel and for Katie. Put a ton of work into organizing this, and also our co-founders of the meetup group, Johanna and Steve. Where's Steve? Round of applause for them. They co-founded SFV Tech. They're the reason we're here. I also want to thank our sponsors for the event. Green Taste Vegan Foods. So if you enjoyed your donuts and your coffee. And I believe they're a new vegan grocery store in San Francisco. Give the founder. Is that right? Cool. And then we also want to thank GT's Kombucha. And a special thank you to Johanna and Steve for ordering all the pizza. Round of applause. Great. So I think I mentioned my name is Sarah. I'm one of the co-organizers of SFV Tech. And I'll briefly introduce our panelists, and then we'll get into a discussion. And hopefully folks who are here who haven't asked questions about vegan tech will have an opportunity at the end. So Lauren is founder of Food Empowerment Project. We have Allie, who is the co-founder of The Green Monks and creator and developer of the app, is it pronounced Plankton? Plankton. Gaurav, who is founder and CEO of Milk Guys. Asher, who is founder and CEO of Pollution Studios. And Ryan, co-founder of Wild Earth. And Katie, who's the founder of FFAC and executive director. So a round of applause for our panelists. To begin, I'd love for each of you to give us a brief background of who you are and how you got involved in vegan technology.
Hi, I'm Lauren Nellis, and I've been vegan for over 30 years, actually 31 next week, 32 next week. Anyway, so I've been doing animal rights for a long time, but in 2007 I started a nonprofit called Food Empowerment Project. We're a vegan food justice organization, so we promote veganism for the animals, and we have a few campaigns on behalf of the animals. We also work on for justice for our farm workers. So we do a school supply drive for the children of farm workers every year, and we incorporate justice for farm workers with everything we do. We also work on lack of access to healthy foods in communities of color, and we also work to try and get people not to buy chocolate sourced from where slavery and child labor come from. And this is what brought, although tech is web and all that, so I'm like the least tech savvy person. But I know the web is tech, but what really brought us and me to understand tech was that when we created our list of chocolates we do and don't recommend, we have a list on our website of the ones we do and don't recommend, and every company has to make a vegan chocolate, but we do it based on country of origin. Well, our list was starting to take off, and all of a sudden people started asking us, well, can you create an app? And I was like, I don't even know what I have a BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry until literally my board voted 2 years ago to make me have an iPhone. I still miss my BlackBerry. So all of a sudden everybody was asking for an app, and I was like, I have no idea. So I was just asking people who make websites, well, can you make an app for us? I didn't know it was something different. And so eventually we put out a plea asking somebody, can you please build an app for us? And this guy from Australia built our app for us. So that's kind of was our introduction to the tech
world. I'm Allie. I'm one half of the Green Monks. The other half is Jordy sitting right now. We're a nonprofit, and we use art and technology to build cool tools that inspire people to do more sustainable choices. Right now we're working on a project called Plankton, as mentioned, and it basically gamifies consumer behavior. And And as people lower their footprint and also complete challenges, they can unlock rewards. And one of the rewards we have right now is they get a tree, a real tree that they can plant anywhere in the world. So that's what we do. And I think the connection to why you're here, I guess, is most of the challenges, I think like 80% of the challenges we have in the app is around diet, because it's the simplest way to actually measure and help people to lower their footprint and unlock a tree. So yeah, that's what we do.
I'm Gaurav. I got introduced to tech before veganism. The first time I learned about why I should eat vegan, I was like, cool, I'm gonna do this. And I walked into a grocery store and I didn't know what to do. So actually I built a product hunt for vegan products for myself and brought it to one of the meetups that occurred maybe in 2017. And there were a few people who saw it and they were like, you're showing us all this great product, we just wanna buy it. And I think that was like the genesis of what we're doing today, which is Milk Guides, an all vegan grocery store. We started in San Francisco, so this is home. But earlier this year, we went national, so we ship everywhere, because a lot more people outside of San Francisco don't have vegan food, surprise. But yeah, ex-Amazon, ex-Instacart, so I guess e-commerce is something I'm obsessed with. But yeah, thank you all for being here.
Hi everyone, my name is Asher. I'm the founder and CEO of Pollution TV, a digital content agency in Los Angeles. And our job is to help tell stories that change the world. We've created video, social, and influencer content for many of the world's leading companies, including a commercial campaign for Google. But our passion is working with plant-based brands. We work with almost 100 plant-based companies and nonprofits to help them harness the power of social media to share information, to build communities, and to drive real-world action. And I'm here today because veganism is a tech movement. We have a very harmful, very inefficient, very old food system that needs to be disrupted, and we need groups like Vegans in Tech and people like y'all in the room here to lead this movement. Thank you for coming out.
My name is Ryan Bethencourt. I'll start with just one thought. I like to start with this kind of interesting thought. Food is technology, right? Our ancestors developed it about 10,000 years ago when we moved from hunter-gatherers to agrarians, farmers, essentially. And so for many of us, these new uses of biotechnology in our food is like, whoa, well, this is different. But in reality, we, humanity, have always used food. We just forgot that 10,000 years ago, our ancestors developed crops, they domesticated animals. And so about 5 years ago, I started on a mission. I've been vegan for about 9 years. I'm a scientist, I'm an entrepreneur. I started an accelerator, an investment firm called IndieBio. We funded companies like, and helped build companies like Memphis Meats, which makes meat, Finless Foods, which makes lab-grown fish, Clara Foods, which brews egg whites, Geltor, as you can probably, brews collagen and gelatin, UA Foods, which make plant-based shrimps. So as you can probably tell, I realized about 30% of the companies we were funding were vegan technology companies. We weren't thinking of it in that way. I was just like, hey, we can use biotech to replace animals. This is just the second domestication, right? It's a way of totally sidestepping the issue of like, I like meat, I'm gonna eat meat. So why don't we just give people meat? Or why don't we give them what they want, but we use biotech so no sentient animal has to go through a factory farming process to get that. So that led me to, I left IndieBio after we funded and built about 80 companies, lots of interesting ones we can talk about. But then I actually left to start Wild Earth. Some of you may have seen, if you haven't, check out our Shark Tank pitch. My Shark Tank got ground and pound, right, by a lot of the sharks, but ended up doing a deal with Mark Cuban. And so it was really a way of sharing the message that we don't have to love animals but kill them to feed our animals, right? Love our animal, kill other animals, and so we're one of the leaders in developing new technologies around plant-based products for our pets, particularly for our dogs. Happy to answer any questions. Even amongst vegans, there's a lot of misunderstandings around dogs being carnivores. They're not, they're actually omnivores, and we can talk about that too. Okay, thank you everyone.
Hi, my name is Katie Cantrell. Bell. I'm the founder and executive director of the Factory Farming Awareness Coalition, and we also organize Oakland Veg. So we've been lucky to partner with Stephen Johanna on several events over the years. We're also organizing Oakland Veg Fest, which takes place on May 18th at Lake Merritt Amphitheater. Totally free. There's going to be more food than ever, so it's going to be awesome. Wanted to plug that before I forget. So FFAC is focused on grassroots education about the impacts of animal agriculture. And we take a really intersectional approach. So we talk, of course, about animal welfare, but also the environment, social justice, public health, how it all ties together. We started giving presentations primarily to high school and college students, but increasingly I've been speaking to corporate green teams and a lot of tech companies here in the Bay Area. There's a growing interest in all kinds of sustainability, and especially people I think are really desperate for ways that they can take action. And so a lot of corporate green teams, they're like, you know, we talked about composting and recycling, we've talked about light bulbs, we've talked about electric vehicles, but food is something that we've never discussed. So that's sort of the avenue that we found to get into these companies. So I'm excited to talk about that because it seems like a lot of you work in tech, but not for vegan tech companies, and you actually have a lot of power to influence food purchasing within your company. All of the successes we've had have been through vegans bringing us in. So I hope to help empower people to make changes within the business you're working for, even if it's not vegan whatsoever. And we're also potentially embarking on a new project that would be much more tech-focused. Most of our connection to tech is just like any organization, like Lauren was saying, you know, web and email, fundraising, it's all, you know, we use all kinds of programs for that, but we are starting to work on a mapping project, a factory farm mapping project, potentially collaborating with some folks who are working with AI and some really cutting edge technology. And we're actually looking for help with this. So I'm hoping maybe to connect with folks who, either if you have a background in AI or if you're just interested in helping with a new exciting project. That's our latest frontier. Oh, all right, great, we've got one person already. I look forward to connecting with you afterwards.
Yes, okay. So you all have different experiences, from being a nonprofit leader, building an app, to an e-commerce company that's gone through Y Combinator. Ali, I know you're building your technology with your co-founder on the side. Asher running a film studio that works with hundreds of vegan brands. Ryan going through, you know, creating your own accelerator and then going through Shark Tank. And Katie working with all kinds of vegan tech companies. So I'd love to understand, how have you hired your teams? Have you outsourced developers to work on your core tech, and how is it actually finding talent who want to work on these topics?
I think that it's been hard for us to find people to help us. Again, the first person who built our app, and maybe all this stuff makes more sense to you than it does to me, I'm sure, but he built it on his own server, but he doesn't live in the United States. And so it was very difficult to get things done. And as you know, volunteers, if you've ever dealt with volunteers, they're there and then they're not there sometimes. And so when it came to the fact that somehow our app was crashing, that it was like, I guess you all know this again, so pardon me, but like I didn't know you had to update it all the time. I just thought he built it and we were set, you know, like forever. We just had to update it. And then the next thing I know, it's like this, like, you're supposed to do this upgrade, and you're still using 2 point whatever, and it's supposed to be 17 now or something. So all of us.
To other companies to do the work for them, but because we were passionate artists and visionaries, it didn't make sense for us to outsource. We needed to have control inside of everything we were doing. And I'm the first one to admit we have no clue what we're doing, but it's great territory and universe to be in, because what we're doing is really, you know, it's a, sometimes jokingly say we're on a huge human kind of a experiment. You know, is it going to be, can we give people incentive to do sustainable choices and prevent us from basically crashing the planet? We don't know, but we're trying to find out. So for us, the biggest challenge is to doing something no one has done before. At least if there was something that has done something like this, we could have said, okay, they did it this way, let's not do it that way. But all the mistakes we have to just take on ourselves, which is, I love it. I mean, I think we take pride in being the stupidest people in the room. Like we try to, surround ourselves with really smart people. and not knowing what we're doing. We do have volunteers to help us. There have been people that reach out to us and being passionate about the project, so we do have that. Like you said, they're not full time, so whenever they're available. But so far, it's been working good. The big release we have right now, that we have 3 passionate people around the world that are actually helping us. So yeah, I think that's that.
So for us, the journey actually started with me building something myself, and I'm the worst programmer out there. But when it morphed into something bigger where we can bring food to people, luckily we had Shopify. And initially it was me, Shopify, and just going to the store and buying products. Ali and Priscilla are actually one of our first few customers, and I remember looking at that order on Shopify, going okay, well I guess we're driving up to East Bay. So just go to the store and get it. But something was happening, and what was happening was my roommate, who's an engineer at Instacart along with me, he was actually seeing us progress. He was seeing this dude sitting in his closet on a computer trying to build this, and then in the evening drive around, deliver orders. We'd go, I think, as far as Vacaville, which is, I don't know how many miles, 80 miles away. And then as time progressed, I had to put a few fridges in my apartment. And it started with one fridge, taking over our home fridge, but then it went up to almost 10 fridges. And he's like, I think this guy's onto something. And he's like, what are you looking for? Do you need an engineer? I was like, yeah. And that's how he got attracted. And the reason I bring this up is because I think part of this talk is about folks in the audience who want to do something of their own. The encouragement I want to give is if you're trying to go after a problem, I think people will come join you as long as you're making progress on things that you can do without them. And that's how we got our first engineering. We went through YC, so that definitely helps. I figured at some point I need to have a shameless plug. I'll have it now. We are looking for engineers, so if anyone's interested, I'd love to talk to you.
We are too, by the way.
Everyone has a shameless plug here. But yeah, that's how we got our first engineer. There were 2 things that I was thinking about as Ali spoke. One, I do believe that having someone within the team feel really passionate and be a visionary is super, super, super important. Sometimes when you're building a tech product, it's not always to spec. It's not always this is what we want. It is very much about the engineer's creativity as well. So bringing that engineer on board is really important because they will try 100 different ideas that you just wouldn't be able to think about. So that's really important. There's another point. We're a vegan company, but we don't actually employ everyone who's vegan. And this is really important because I think there are a lot of talented people out there who may not fully buy into veganism, but they buy into saving the planet. And if we are open-minded about how we position the importance of the planet, we'll attract that talent, and slowly those people will convert. There are people on our team that went from hardcore, having meat every meal, to we now have a vegan tiffin service that delivers to us, and they're eating vegan food for lunch, which is incredible. So I think there's also that opportunity to make an impact. So my thought is that we should just be looking for the best people, the most hardworking people who want to make the most impact, because that is how we will change the world. So something else to keep in mind.
So I guess I have a little different perspective on hiring. I live in LA. We hire directors and producers and artists, and I have found that the people that we attract with mission-aligned projects are so incredible and so inspiring that it gives me hope that we're going to change the world. We've got a startup story at Pollution 2, a couple people living in a warehouse, throwing raves, doing construction to turn it into a film studio, and world-class directors with commercial reels came and volunteered their time to help us do construction because they don't want to sell watches, they don't want to sell hats, they want to make the world better. And being able to say, I have this project, and here's how we're going to transform the world, people gravitate towards that. And the agencies that we're up against, the agencies representing the milk companies and the big beef companies, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of political connections, but they will never have the passionate, creative people that we have, and that's what gives us an advantage. That's the part of the playing field that the vegans dominate and the vegan aligned. And so when I see the people who are drawn to this movement, I know that if I can just create the projects for them, they will come. And I never had to worry about attracting amazing people, and it inspires me every single day.
Yeah, chicken? Yeah, that sounded like a chicken. So, being mission driven is everything. I actually want to reinforce the fact that it's not just vegans. We hire everyone, right? As long as people understand what our mission is, which is that we are here to end factory farming, the use of animals in food. That is our mission. What inspired me to start Wild Earth is that when I looked at the data, right? I actually, feed my dogs and my fosters meat, and I'd be like, well, even as a vegan, I'd be like, what am I doing? Like, what type of impact is this having? This is waste meat. When I looked at the data, 30% of our meat consumption in the U.S. actually goes to our pets. 30%, 30, right? 30%. So that's not waste. These are animals that are being killed to be fed to our pets. There are about 180 million dogs and cats in the U.S. Actually in the larger population centers of the world, which the U.S. is no longer one of, pet ownership is going up exponentially. I mean, we're seeing about 30% growth rates in India and China of pet ownership. That means we're going to be killing more animals just to feed our animals that we love. And so I realized, I was like, this is something that I really, I never imagined myself as the dog food guy. Right? It was kind of a crazy idea. Like, I'd been starting all these biotech companies, and now I'm the dog food guy, right? The vegan dog food guy. It's like, okay, I guess that's what I got to do. But it was really a mission-driven thing, and looking at the sheer impact we can have on something that seems so trivial, like dog food. And so the mission draws a lot of incredible people to us. But when we hire people, I try to be very clear. It's like, I view myself as a general, right? It's a big tent. I'm here to win. I have one focus, which is to end factory farming. I want to decimate them using capitalism. That is my mission. And so to do that, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? That basically means I'll work with like Mars, and I'll work with Tyson, and I'll work with these huge companies if we can actually remove the use of animals partially, a little bit. And so that basically means there's a lot of like friendly fire, right? A lot of vegans tell me I'm not vegan because I'm willing to work with cultured meat to try and reduce the use of meat. And so I share that with my team when we recruit, and I basically say, we are a big tent as a culture. Our aim, we actually had a conversation earlier on, our aim is that as people who care about the animals, the environment, all of these big things, most people agree, that is how we hire. If you care about the animals and the planet and the people, right, we want to feed people better as well eventually. And so that is how we recruit. We're a big tent, and then I think I was talking to someone from Netflix. We're a team, we're not a family, right? That's a very big thing, and it's really important for most people, especially us vegans. We're like, oh, we're all part of the same happy family, and it's like, you don't do your job, you get fired, right? Like, sorry, like you gotta deliver. And so I'm a general, right? That's what you gotta do, and sometimes it's kind of painful, so.
So we're a team of 12 now, paid part-time and full-time, and most of those folks are going out and giving presentations in schools. And so we don't brand ourselves as a vegan organization because it really helps us to get into schools and businesses to be able to say that we're talking about the ecological and social justice impacts of the food system. Otherwise, they think it's vegan propaganda. So we avoid that in our branding materials, but our paid staff are all vegan because we meet people where they are. We're not saying you need to go vegan overnight, but we're encouraging people to make that transition, take as many steps as they can. So in order to really authentically guide people through that, we need people who know how to walk the walk. But Monica Chen, who's our National Programs Director, she's in the back, she started a really incredible internship program. So now we're working with high school and college interns. We have 2 of our amazing interns here today. And it's really exciting to see actually how many of our interns are not vegan or even vegetarian. So we're giving them, and they're people who, Ryan, like you were saying, and I think actually a lot of you were saying that, these are people who are passionate about social justice, who are really passionate about stopping climate change, and this is a way that they can take action. And so we're helping give them skills, we're giving them background, knowledge, and so they can start down that path themselves. So I do think that it's really important to have these entry points for people to take action, even if they're not totally vegan yet. And then just in terms of how we find people, finding presenters is a challenge because it takes a really particular type of person to be able to talk about these issues. There's a lot of background knowledge that you have to have. We're talking about several different subject areas, but also just, again, being able to meet people where they are, be really friendly, be really patient, be really open, because that's what draws people in. So that's the main thing we look for, I think, is both the expertise and the interest and the approach that we take, and the ability to have those kinds of conversations in a really friendly way.
Great, thank you all. Did you want to have a follow-up comment? Okay. We started getting into this. Katie, do you think it's important, everyone on the panel, to call your company a vegan tech company? Have you experienced any resistance from tech to veganism? And how do you handle this? Ryan, you look excited.
Yeah, so everyone can probably hear me, right? I'm pretty loud. Can you hear me back there or no?
Use the mic.
Yes? Okay, I'll use the mic. So recently I was made fun of on Shark Tank by Mr. Wonderful for being a vegan company. We purposely talk about plant-based. I don't shy away from using the word vegan myself personally, but I know that for people who are not vegan, it can be a turnoff. I know that we're using it as the dirty word that we vegans love, but no one else seems to love. So we don't brand ourselves as a vegan company. We are a better dog food company. That's it, right? That's it's kind of like Impossible, right? Like Impossible and Beyond, they're just a better burger. And so that is our mission, to be a better product. You'll hear me say vegan sometimes, but Mr. Wonderful, by the way, said that if we fed dogs a plant-based diet, they'd have to wear tie-dye t-shirts and Birkenstocks. That's the image that most people have of us vegans, right? Like, we're in tie-dyes and like preaching peace and like eating grass, right? Like, so it's true, right? So we're very different, but they haven't caught up yet. So I guess that's my thought about the vegan thing.
We proudly use the word vegan because for us, we're trying to make connections of issues. And we're trying to show that compassion comes from the same thread and oppression comes from the same thread. And that by using the word vegan, we have had nobody turn us away. We have reports that we've done on lack of access to healthy foods. I've given talks all over the place. Nobody is turned off by me talking about veganism. And the reason why is because we're also saying being vegan isn't enough. We're saying you can't talk about having a cruelty-free diet if you don't talk about the way that farm workers are treated in the fields. You can't say your chocolate is cruelty-free if it comes from slavery and child labor. So we're basically showing, and also you can't say going vegan is easy if you're a person of color, if you don't know that people of color, most of whom lack access to healthy foods. So we're showing that it's connected and that you can't just talk about saving the world without not talking about what's happening to human animals as well. And the connection between human animals and non-human animals is interconnected. And by using the word vegan, we're trying to show what many vegans previously have not done, which is show that some of us care about human animals as well. And so I think that's why we have been asked to speak all over the place and had doors open with farm worker justice organizations who say things to me like, I've never heard a vegan talk about farm worker justice. And they want to work with us. The city of San Jose has given us 2 awards. And they use the word vegan every time at their city council meeting because that's part of who we are. They talk about our school supply drive for the children of farm workers. They talk about our work on lack of access to healthy foods. They're using the word vegan because we use the word vegan. And that gives everybody in that room, all the city council members and everybody who's listening, a different perspective on what veganism is.
Thanks for that. Well, for us, I think this is through the work we've done, through the grassroots initiatives we've done at regular workplaces, Green Team and things like that. What we learned is it's easier to connect with people and start talking about vegan and diet changes if they're already interested in other topics, let's say environment or health or whatever that is. So for us, we don't call ourselves a vegan company or a vegan app even, because it's one of those things. For us, is when you have this talk with someone, and they come up to you and say, "Hey, so we're thinking about buying a new car. Like, well, what do you think? Should I go electric? Should whatever?" So you have that talk with them, and it's almost like you have this vegan wild card and just saving it for the perfect moment, right? And then so you talk to them and say, "Well, actually buying electric it might not be. Maybe try ride sharing or public transport, yada yada." And then you go, "But did you know?" If you really care about the environment, if you actually skip animal products, if they're actually going to have a bigger impact, and then they go, "Yeah, I know, but I can't give up cheese." And that's when you go, "Have you heard about the milk guys?" So, and that's one point. And another point I think some people have echoed earlier is we need people on our team and also people who use our projects that are not like us. We need to be inclusive because the problems, the obstacles, the challenges they're facing are very real. And we have to listen more than anything to understand how those problems look like, and we have to come up with creative solutions to solve those problems. And so we have to be inclusive. And there's a risk of if you're a vegan app or that you're not going to get people who are interested in the environment, and you've lost maybe 2,000 people who would eventually within maybe 6 months switch to a more plant-based diet. So that's our philosophy, and I think again we take pride in not having people who are like us. We need them who are not like us because we need to see the problems through their eyes.
Firstly, Milkaz has over 100 vegan cheeses. So this is actually a really interesting conversation for me because this is one of the biggest things we think about as a vegan grocery store. I'm very fortunate in some ways that I wasn't vegan all along, or I didn't become vegan at the age of 10. Because when I went through the transition, there was enough education, enough people, enough Facebook groups that I could learn from. And there was this moment in time where I could argue from both sides as like an omnivore and also as a vegan, and I could see the frustration towards both sides. And what I realized is it's really hard to walk up to someone and say, "You're here today and you need to have a binary switch to being vegan." What's a lot easier is to ask for an atomic switch, and that's one meal. Most people can skip animal products for one meal. And that's kind of been the hypothesis of what drives us, is instead of talking about vegan as an identity, which I think is an incredible thing for those who are able to achieve it, but like Lauren said, I really love that answer. It is only part of the journey. The journey that we have to go on is a lot longer. Maybe most vegans won't like to hear this, but we're maybe at 20% of the way that we need to go in terms of how our actions impact the planet. So when we think about this, that like you don't want it to be the identity, you want it to be about the food. And the way people respond to food is they just want to have the best food for the best price and the best experience. And our philosophy is very simple. If we make vegan food better than non-vegan food, you're going to want to eat it. So we really, really focus on the food itself. We don't talk about the person being vegan. We actually, we're going through this little branding exercise, and we want to call our customers change makers, because there's someone who wants to bring positive change to this planet. It so happens that the food that they eat is vegan. It so happens that they also will drive an electric car. It so happens that they maybe will ride share. Maybe they'll do other things in their life that actually make them a better person and continue the process of change. Like, vegan is not a destination. It's an act that you choose to do every day. So for us, we use the word vegan, but we use it as a diet and as a food word versus to describe you as a customer. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really important. Of the companies that we work with, 3 or 4 use the word vegan. Everyone else not only moves away from it, but has in their brand guidelines, we will never use vegan. And I think that's because as a movement, we have broken this word. I use it a lot in my personal activism. I have an Instagram page, I hashtag vegan all the time, but I would never go out and talk to somebody who's not in the movement and use the word veganism. I did a shoot for Impossible at the Daytona 500, handing out burgers to drunken NASCAR fans. And we would go up to them, we had a race car driver, would you like a vegan burger? No, I would never eat any vegan food. Like, you wouldn't have anything that's vegan. Like, no, I've never had anything vegan, I would never have anything vegan. Well, would you like this burger? It's made from plants. Oh yeah, definitely. I would do that. And I think, you know, in my heart, there are only so many people that we're gonna convince that we need to save the world and we need to save animals and we need to be compassionate and smart. And so I'll do whatever I can to support those people. But for everybody else, this burger tastes great, you'll live longer, it's a good price, you're not making a political choice. You're not joining the movement, you're not going on a mailing list, you're just eating this. And I think as we scale up, it's the companies that aren't saying you're signing up for something, that are saying here's something and it's better. They're the ones that are going to be driving the movement. And I think we're going to see a shift from the really ethical activist origins of this movement into a much more capitalist, you know, if Tyson can make more money selling plants, they'll do that. And I think that's how we change everybody, which is the ultimate goal.
So for us, it really depends on the audience. We're trying to relate to people and connect with them and their interests, and that it's very different depending on the city, depending on the age group. So, you know, it seems like there's this weird dichotomy where there have been some studies showing that, you know, people really are turned off by the term vegan, but then, you know, vegan surpassed vegetarian as a search term long ago. If you know, vegan on Instagram, it's like tens of millions of people are tagging this. So it is a really hot and popular term, you know. And so with young people, they know the term vegan because Beyonce and Colin Kaepernick, and you know, there's all these celebrities that are promoting veganism. So with younger audiences, depending on the location, it's not necessarily a turnoff. But with adults, especially with older audiences, you know, still some older audiences don't even know what the term is. So we'll use it more or less depending on who we're speaking to. And also, you know, there's a difference in urban areas. So I now live in Portland, Oregon, and it's amazing, speaking to high schools there, you know, there'll be this kid who's kind of like your stereotypical jock, and he'll be like, oh yeah, you know, we make almond milk at home. Like, it's just a whole different world up there. So, and almost every restaurant has vegan options. So people there know that term. But we have a director in Colorado, and she speaks to a lot of areas. She was actually banned from a high school in Colorado, not even because she was talking about factory farming, but because she was talking about climate change. And so with those kinds of audiences, vegan is not going to go over very well. So then it's, you know, more talking about health or how it's, you know, driving small farms out of business. It's polluting your water, and here's a product that doesn't do that. So I think it's really dependent on who you're trying to reach.
Great, thank you. I think we have time. We'll do one more question, then we'll open it up to the audience. And do we have a volunteer to be a runner? Okay, cool. One question, then we'll get you running. Thank you. What advice would you all give to someone interested in becoming involved in vegan tech or starting their own vegan tech company, or in your case, Lauren, a vegan tech app?
Well, I'd first thank you for knowing how to do vegan tech. I don't know that I have any advice, actually. Only a request that you use your amazing, brilliant talents and help nonprofit organizations because we desperately need you to help further our mission. But other than that, I think we actually want your advice because we always need it.
So the question was the advice for anyone who wants to start a vegan tech. Just go for it. I mean, if it's, there is always probably, the reason people start things, whether you're milk guys or whoever you are, or us, is because you feel like there's a vacuum for something, and a lot of times you don't know how to do it, but someone's going to do it, and if you're passionate enough about your mission, I think you're going to gather like-minded people to figure out how to do it. Again, we didn't know what we were doing 6 months ago, and we're not going to know what we're going to do 6 months from now, but we're just still doing it, and it's hell of a fun. So I just encourage you to do it, and you're gonna find, because if you spread positive energy and then you're really passionate about what you're gonna do, you're gonna get people who are gonna follow you along, and they're gonna help figure it out with you. So don't be afraid if you don't know how to start.
I definitely agree with go for it. I think something you want to think about initially is why you're doing it and what problem you're solving. Who do you need to speak to? Is it about helping those who are already vegans, which is definitely something that also needs to happen, or is it that you want to convert more people into eating a vegan diet, even if it's not fully a vegan diet? Or is it about a completely different aspect, like you were thinking about pets eating 30% of the meats being consumed by pets, so there's something everywhere to find. I think we're only at the start of the journey. I think 10 years from now, we're going to be like, oh, vegan is the new normal. Like, of course, if you're not vegan, it's going to be very weird. So I'm very excited about that future. And I think we just need a whole lot more people working on this. So go for it, start now, think why, figure out who your audience is, and just start building and see what happens.
Yeah, I think I would say go for it too, and I would come at it from a little more dire position. I was at Oxford University last month filming with Dr. Joseph Poore, who's one of the world's top researchers into the impact of the food industry on our planet. And he had this amazing stat: 30 to 50% of our personal greenhouse gas emissions come from animal agriculture. That's half. Everything else you're doing doesn't matter if you're eating meat. A hamburger from a cow has as much water in it as a month's worth of showers. 40% of the Earth's surface is dedicated to animal agriculture. Meat and dairy are killing people. They're killing billions of animals. They're keeping people around the world from being fed. And it's got to change. It's got to change or we're fucked. And the way it's going to change is going to be with tech solutions. It's going to be with capitalism. It's going to be with getting people to make changes that don't feel like they're giving up things, but feel like they're getting something better. They're getting a better dog food. They're getting better cheeses. I think it's not a coincidence that the rise of veganism over the last 4 or 5 years coincides exactly with the rise of social media. We were all independent activists doing our own thing in our own isolated, sad bubbles. And now, thanks to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, we're a community, we're working together. We have purchasing power, people are listening to us. There are so many opportunities, but we need leaders. We need leaders in the tech industry. We need people to step up and say, I'm gonna change the world. And it doesn't matter which part of this equation you care about. Every single social justice issue that we're facing right now gets better if people eat fewer animals. And so by getting involved, you save the planet, you save people, you save animals, and there's potential to make a shit ton of money.
So I'll start from I think everyone's giving advice on vegan technologies, starting vegan companies. I'll actually roll back to, I've been a founder, an entrepreneur, an investor, and so I've worked with hundreds of founders to help them start their companies or advise them in various different ways. And so I'll roll back to what does it mean to start something, right? Why should you or should you not? And so my perspective is a little different in some ways to many other people who've built things. Because I look at it as none of us gets out of this alive, right? We end. All of us, every single one of us, I have this vision around impermanence. And so whenever something frustrating happens or whenever I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know if I can do this, the stress is gonna crack me, I go, well, I die in about 60 years. I'm vegan, so maybe I get a little longer, right? But I'm like, so then really what are you waiting for, right? Really? What are you waiting for? This is the only shot we have. So if you want to do something that matters to you, doesn't matter whether it's vegan technology or anything, right? Starting a nonprofit, it's your time is now. And the biggest inflection and advice that I have for anyone that's thinking of starting something is, we live in a permission-based society, right? Can I leave? Can I join? Can I do this? Most of us get that in our hard wiring that we have to ask for permission, right? We have to actually say, can I do this? No one's going to give you permission to start something. No one, right? The only person that will give you permission is yourself. And that's really hard for all of us to say, now is the right time to do that thing that I've always wanted to do, but it's never quite right. So my advice to you is give yourself the permission. Start. And in the end, we all die anyway, so why not try?
So there's two things I want to say. So for those of you who are interested in starting your own company, nonprofit, what have you, for me what was really critical was community. So I was an animal activist in college, and I made some friends that I'm still friends with actually. Like I started leafleting with Brian Grupe, who's now working for Wild Earth. It was a pretty small world back then, but I got so much critical advice and feedback and support, and as all of us have grown, we're all in different positions where now we're able to help each other. And so, starting something, it's scary and it's stressful, and so having support, having those people you can turn to is really, really critical. And also, I would not be here today without so many doors that were opened for me by these people that I've met. So, just getting into what you're passionate about, even before you're looking to start something. If you really care about something, go out, find other people who care about that same thing. Join them, join groups, get active, and networking, I think, it has sort of a sleazy connotation because people do it trying to get something out of it. But if you're really just genuinely trying to find like-minded people, that's when really beautiful things can grow out of that. The other thing I wanted to come back to is what I started to say in the beginning, which is that even if you're not, I think there's a lot of value actually in not starting your own thing, and either getting connected to something that exists. There's problems when people sometimes will say to me, "Oh, I want to start my own nonprofit. Can you give me advice?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, what do you care about?" And they're like, "I don't know. I just want to start a nonprofit." So it's better to at least start off by seeing what's already out there, and if there's someone that you can join up with. But also, you really do have a lot of power within the company you're already working for. And I think so many people want to go out there to work for vegan businesses, to work for vegan companies. But you can make tremendous change being the lone vegan voice at a non-vegan company. I have a really good friend of mine who was doing sustainability for a pretty big company, and she was able to get them to make almost all of their product lines vegan. They had never thought about it because no one there was vegan, but she was like, you will reach such a larger audience, we just have to remove these two minor ingredients. And they're like, oh, okay. And there's so much like that where you can be that voice and no one else will have thought of that. A lot of what we do increasingly is working with institutional food service. And so many of the major companies we get into, we're able to speak at a lunch and learn because a vegan is like, hey, Green Team, can we host this speaker on food and sustainability? And then we're able to start this bigger conversation. Food purchasing, what food is bought for catering, or if you're working for bigger companies that have cafeterias, starting that conversation. Some of the big companies have vegan groups, but if you can kind of find, figure out who the other vegans are and band together, there's even more power. So there's, I felt this as a student, like we also work with universities and trying to affect that food service. And I didn't realize when I was a student how much power I had because I was the customer. And as an outside group coming in, they're like, well, we don't really care about you, you're just a random person. But the students are the ones they want to buy their, buy food. And so as a student, as someone who's part of an organization, you have a lot more power than you might realize. So even before you take a leap and quit your company, maybe see what you can do within the context that you're already working in.
Great. Questions from the audience, if you wouldn't mind.
Hey, thanks for coming. My name is Sunil. My question is around how important do you think it is to have consumer level change and policy level change? I can expand on this a little bit. The two examples I think about are like Tesla and plastic bags or grocery bags. Yeah, people care about driving carbon, like emissions-free cars, or people care about like bringing their own reusable bag, but without that 10 cents charge, people aren't going to be as motivated to do that. And without Tesla being as sexy as it is, or without being able to blow past all these suckers in a carpool lane, it's not going to be as appealing. So how important, like a lot of you have talked about like pushing for or inciting consumer level change, but how important do you think your respective missions are on policy level change?
We believe in individual choices and collective voices. So there's only so far individuals can take anything. I work to help pass the law in California against the sale and production of foie gras. And policy is really hard to change unless you have the momentum of the community and that there's some understanding and some force there. So with everything we do, it's individual choices, but we also build in policy changes, supporting boycotts by farm workers, like against Wendy's, or we have a corporate campaign against Safeway right now. So it's just as much individual choices, but it has to be our collective voices together in order to change at a wider area. That it just can't be individuals saying, I'm going to shop my way out of this, because the problems are too big to shop our way out of.
In our world, we believe may the best food win, and I think if we had enough time, that's sufficient. There's obviously a lot of subsidies that the factory farming industry gets. All I'm saying is that that should be leveled out, and I think vegan food will win because it truly is incredible, and you really have to spend time thinking about how to make it creative. However, the reality of the matter is we don't have time. Right? Like, we're running out of time, and I think most people understand this. By 2050, we're in a really bad place. Even by 2030, we're in a really bad place. So because of that timeline, I think governments need to do something. It's not necessarily about policy. It's not necessarily about taxing certain foods. It's about governments recognizing that there's a problem and actually helping us solve that problem, investing in solving that problem. Right? It's not that, if you eat vegan food, you should get like a $5 off or anything like that. It's just like, let people pay for the vegan food, but tell people that they need to eat vegan food. Tell people that the planet's actually headed towards disaster. That's a lot more important than the policies themselves, in my head. And obviously, like, the best food will win.
Next question.
Hi, thanks for being here, guys. So my name is Mohan. I want to ask a question particularly about something I think Ryan and Asher mentioned. So you guys commented that the way we're going to win this is through capitalist solutions and basically providing a better product. So that argument, there's a number of people, other people making that same argument, including Pat Brown, Impossible Foods, the GFI is banking on that. My kind of counter argument to that is, if we don't push the ethical benefits, how will society ever change? If we don't make people tap into their inner compassion and we just say this is a better product, how do we know they're not going to return to, the path of horror, basically, on other living creatures in the future? An example I have is I went out to lunch with some friends, and they all recognize the horror of factory farming, but now they're proclaiming cricket flour is going to save the planet, and we need to factory farm crickets. So, unless we somehow emphasize the ethical connection, how are we ever going to get better as a civilization?
So I'll just make one comment quickly on the crickets thing. People have tried to get me to make cricket dog food, and I was like, that is still an animal. It's still an animal, we're not doing it. So I'm a big proponent of using, and I know this is also a charged word, right? Capitalism, as Asher was using, is a charged word in our society, just like veganism is. It's a charged word. And so, and I realize that capitalism has done a lot of bad things for us, right? And so, it's looking at the system we currently have in place and looking at how we can make the impact that we want to make. So I'll give you one example, which I think, I agree with you, factory farming is a horror. I think that in 200 years' time, people will look back at us and go, in the same way that the horrible things humanity did in its own past, everything from the abuse of women to slavery to all sorts of other horrible things, and actually still do in some parts of the world, including our world, like the US as well, unfortunately. There are examples in the past where we have used technology to remove the use of animals. So one example is, so I'll give you two examples. Electricity, right? Once it was whale blubber. We used to hunt whales to light our houses. That is like insane to, I think, all of us, but we would hunt whales, really incredibly intelligent animals, just to light our oil at night. The other one, which is really interesting, is the horse and buggy, right? So that example is often used, the horse and buggy to cars, shifting to cars. What was interesting is if you look at those old newspapers, which I do, by the way, I'm a big fan of history. I listen to like Lincoln's Team of Rivals and what happened during his time during the Civil War and the abolitionist movement, which I think is very similar to what we're doing. You look at it and you go, okay, well, yes, the car eventually overtook it, but at the time, people were like, oh my God, there's so much manure on our streets that we're gonna drown in horse manure. There is no solution to our problem. This is the end of days, right? Literally, like that's what it's saying. It's like we're all about to die of manure. And then the car came along, and now no one thinks about jumping on a horse to get home from work, right? So I believe in technology. I wish we could abolish all the evils that we still do as humanity. I think that is a stepped process. Like I said, I feel like a general. Sometimes there are horrible things that I've had to talk with, discuss. I had an argument with an executive at a big meat company who told me there was no such thing as factory farms. And I was like, what do you mean there's no such thing as factory farms? And he was like, there's no such thing. He started yelling at me. I mean, okay, we can't even agree on basic terminology, so I think we're all at war to change our system for the better. So help your friends who will occasionally eat a vegan meal, eat another vegan meal, right? And just do the best you can.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an either or. I mean, I think the moral argument is what gets people to go vegan and stay vegan, and there's a stickiness to it that every other argument doesn't have. But realistically, there are a lot of people who, they're just fighting to get through. They're trying to get food on the table. There are chicken farmers who are in debt to giant companies and they couldn't switch over if they wanted to. And for them, you need to give them a better alternative. And I think a lot about the McDonald's pink slime scandal from a few years ago. Everybody was disgusted at, oh, look at these, like, chicken nuggets are not made of chicken, they're made of all these whatever. And what I took out of that was actually a lot of hope, that McDonald's chicken nuggets are 70% vegan. It's a lot of like, it's cornmeal and sawdust and whatever, but somebody at McDonald's said, we can have 70% vegan and we'll make a little bit more money. And so if we can say, well, have 80%, 90%, 100% vegan, you'll make a little more money, people will still buy it, that will get everybody else on board. And those are the people who we need. And we're not supporting, I don't think.
Time for one more question.
That last comment sounded like better meat company. Anyway, I wanted to ask, I know a lot of entrepreneurs and technologists, everybody needs more resources, everybody needs money, everybody needs an engineer, someone with a particular skill. Everyone needs a connection. I wanted to ask this board, this panel, do you see any opportunities to collaborate better than we're doing? Everyone's running and doing. Is there a way to organize us the way that the Koch brothers seem to have done? Or the Amish, who all pile on a single house. Let's build this house together. And then the next one, and then the next one. Are there opportunities to collaborate, share, help someone else, even if it's not your personal bailiwick? Thank you.
I can just make one comment around, because I've been involved in like the building of company side. This is actually happening. So a lot of vegans, high net worth vegans who have the resources are actually helping. It's actually called the Glass Wall Syndicate. You can look it up. I don't know if it sounds like you're familiar with them. They actually band together to help vegans who don't have the financial resources get them and build companies. You still have to win, you still have to earn it. You still have to have a good business concept, right? It's not just kind of, I'm just gonna go and save the chickens and break into the factory farm. Like, it has to be a business. But But it's beginning, and so we're starting from such a low base of support. There's some philanthropists out there that are helping nonprofits. We've still got a long way to go, but I've met a lot of really compassionate people that they're not in for themselves. They're here to help the broader movement.
And if I can evangelize for a second, Instagram is where we are organizing. It's where young people are organizing. It's where companies are organizing. I helped found an athlete nonprofit, and it's all based on Instagram. If you wanted to develop a communications tool to take all these individual vegans in their own little bubbles and bring them together, you would develop social media. And the more we support each other, the more we communicate, the more we show that we are a community, that we're not just separate individuals, the more power we have and the more we can cross-pollinate and build together.
I do really like the question you're asking, and I'm thinking about all the answers. One crazy idea that comes to my mind, and hopefully will inspire better ones, is that all the vegans should go move to one city, vote the city to go vegan, move to the next city, and just keep doing that. I think that's the kind of answer that's the kind of question you're asking, is like, how can we move systemically and address a big enough but a small enough part of the problem, really be like, check, done, and then all we have is just a list of zip codes that we're going through every morning. We're like, okay, this one's next. That'd be really cool. I do think that we live in the world of capitalism and reality, and I think everyone has their own priorities in lives. Something that I've noticed is, as much as everyone talks about it, like support small businesses, local businesses, I think there are a lot of small vegan businesses that are coming up, and supporting them is probably one of the most important things we could do, because they're the ones who are going to grow the food part of it a lot. I think about food a lot and understand there are other categories as well, but that's what's really going to help. So if you're thinking about like, I'm always conflicted about this, like if Whole Foods launches a vegan chicken finger, should you buy it from them or should you buy it from an all vegan brand? My thought usually tends to be, should be all vegan brand. But when it comes to restaurants, my thinking is a little different, because the restaurants are already like really just trying to survive. They want to go vegan. Like I'm working with this Ethiopian restaurant in my free time to help them transition to a fully vegan menu, but they're so afraid that they're not going to be able to like succeed. So I think restaurants and small businesses really like want to do the right thing, but they need our support. So that's where the answer maybe lies. Other than that, let's move to a zip code. Just a quick one. Well, being from Sweden, I'm a little bit biased towards another system that is not capitalism. And the gentleman in the back who asked about compassion versus profit earlier too, and I do stay up at night, and I think we talk about this with Katie on the way in. I do worry about that. Like we've come to this point because we exploited anything that could be exploited in the name of profit. So I do worry about, are we going to do the same thing with now the put a tag of veganism next to it, right? So I don't know. I don't have an answer personally to that, but I hope we come up with something post-capitalism that is. And I think to the gentlemen in the back, I think we have to, as a society, we have to progress towards something that means more than money, and same thing with compassion towards people of other color or sexual orientation whatsoever. We're not there yet, but we've come far progress as a society, and I think we have to very carefully think about what we want to go next, because like many people have said, we have less than 12 years, really. That's it. And I hope that we can come up with something that is not only being driven by profit alone, but we can actually together work something out what we don't care about, if what the bottom line is. So.
Our organization primarily, we actually don't work with a lot of vegan organizations, and that's because our values are much different. And as a woman of color who started this group, I haven't had as many doors open to me as other people who've started vegan organizations. A lot of our work is actually giving back. So our work on lack of access to healthy foods is 100% for the community. We're not going in and talking about veganism blatantly, because one, we're there because there's an injustice taking place in that community and we want to change it. And two, you can't talk about veganism to communities who can't even access healthy foods. So our work has been trying to push policymakers, push corporations, and now we're working to try to get a worker-owned cooperative off the ground. Our work with farm workers is completely giving. Our school supply drive for the children of farm workers is us giving back. We don't see it as an act of charity. We see it to help right an injustice that's taking place. And as vegans, we are the ones who really, unless we grow our own food, we have farm workers to thank for everything we eat. So we do a school supply drive to give thanks to them and to give the parents one less thing to worry about and to show those kids that they are magnificent, wonderful beings and we want them to succeed. So all of that is 100% for others.
Beautiful. We have time for one more quick question. We're going to bring it up for one more. And then we'll have the panelists after. You can come find them if they have time. Go ahead, Butte.
First of all, thanks to all of you for being here, and it's really a great movement that we're all here together. I'm the first vegan acupuncturist to summit Mount Kilimanjaro 3 years ago, and I started a nonprofit called Center for Healing by Design with the mission to awaken people that this vegan movement is not just for the animals, for the earth, but also for our own health. We're at the mercy of all the animal protein that's doing harm to our body. And I think that awakening people, I have, as an acupuncturist, I demonstrate that being vegan could be healthy and do everything you possibly can, just as long as you know the knowledge and how to take care of yourself. That's what my nonprofit teaches. And for a lot of the vegetarians, they cannot move to vegan because of their health concerns. Or a lot of vegans, they themselves not having a healthy life, they have health challenges because of their lack of knowledge. So one of the main goal, I think, awareness we want to raise is this movement is not just for animals and the health of the planet, but also our own health, our individual health. So that is one thing I want to bring people to think about. And I also want to bring up that, I don't know if you all know about this worldwide vegan entrepreneur network that was started 2 years ago by 2 vegan entrepreneurs in Switzerland. They are in the high fashion business to promote vegan fashion that made of plant-based materials and cruelty-free materials. But so today I want to announce that I'm starting the first U.S. chapter of this vegan entrepreneur network as a meetup. And I invite all of you and all of you in the audience who are interested in joining our entrepreneur network to really with the goal to help each other, our businesses support each other, collaborate and brainstorm and learn together how we can collaborate as a whole. So I am preparing for our kickoff meeting, and if whoever, any of you are interested, please come and I'll love to give you the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Panelists, any other closing thoughts before we, Katie, you want to say something?
Thank you. I just wanted to answer that last question. I think that there's this tendency lately in the past few years to figure out what is the one right answer. What is the one right strategy? What's the one, for businesses, for nonprofits? And lately in the animal advocacy world, it's been a lot of corporate outreach. And people are saying, no, we shouldn't do individual outreach anymore. We should just do corporate outreach. And you know, and I'm sure there's similar debates within the business world about maybe, you know, should we say vegan or should we call it plant-based? And I think there's no one right answer, and that's really important for us to realize, is that all of our work complements each other. And you know, this drive to get more plant-based options into businesses, it's not going to go anywhere if individuals aren't interested in eating more. And you know, we drive demand by getting out there and doing outreach to people. And so I think, you know, to answer your question, I think that realizing that we are all supporting each other, even if we're not necessarily working directly together, it's easier also to encourage individuals to go vegan or plant-based if they have more access. And so all of these startups are just making it easier. So realizing that we're in kind of this ecosystem together and that all of our work is complementing each other.
Beautiful. Well, I think we could probably talk all night. Can we give a round of applause for our panelists? I have to give a special shout out to my brother, Asher. Thank you for being born for me. And thank you all for showing up. Can you give yourselves a round of applause? All right. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the pizza and kombucha and whatever's left of the donuts and coffee.